Today, the staff and faculty give 100% every day. I think we figured that out real quick. I leaned over and told Meredith that I changed my mind. I want to come teach with you all. But I'm scared of small children. I love teenagers. I freeze. Remember when Miss Seymour, where is she? You asked me to come, and remember I almost freaked out. You wanted me to come and talk to your students in first grade. Today the staff does give 100%. Just a few of them are Dr. Kim Hendon, Brent Meadows, who I sat down a few minutes somewhere in the last couple of days, and he is the picture of warmth and love for children. You know those people you meet, and within 2 minutes you know you like them. Brent was one of those people. There's also there Hope Caldwell and Kathy Hardnick, who is not pictured because I couldn't catch her yesterday, but also the lunchroom manager, Betty Shears, who says that she loves children, and thankfully cooking is her hobby, and she loves her job. Salita Allen is just beginning her first year like me, but she's at Night in Low School. She's looking forward to it, and it is one of the dedicated custodians in our system, along with Diane Phillips, also, who is not pictured here. But Diane said, when I asked her, what do you love about your job the most? And she said, I love the job most when I see my grandchildren here and they run and hug me. Teachers create wonderful displays about learning on their doors. I was very impressed with all the creativity. I walked every wing and hallway, and I was impressed. I can't do that. The lunchroom is spick and span, and sometimes the teachers invite visitors to come to their classrooms. That's me and the Ellis Smith dog with those little short people. The Hanley Elementary School was built in 1926. It had maple flooring that I thought was beautiful. It had mint green wainscoting in the lower walls, which I also thought was beautiful. And I can still smell that building. It stood on the north side of West Point Street, facing the high school. Town school for 1st through 6th, 7th grade. Town school at Hanley Elementary, you went 1st through 6th grade there. And then 7th grade was a big moment because you walked across the street to the high school. And this is what is on the property today, the Hanley Gymnasium. The land was taken down, as Mr. Marker mentioned, to make all the buildings level with one another. The old building shown here, the chalkboards that had a basement. At one time the basement was used for a lunchroom before they placed it under the auditorium. The original steps of the old Roanoke Normal College that we talked about last year, these are the original steps that were facing the corner of Vaughn Street and West Point. And all those times I went up those steps, and I had no idea that they dated back to 1920s, and even probably further back than that. The back doors were Miss Thea Cotney's room. When I was in 6th grade, Miss Cotney broke her leg. And I asked her when I interviewed her last year, I said, Miss Cotney, remember you broke your leg? Oh, yeah. I said, how in the world, with no handicap entrances and the things we have today, how did you get back and forth to your classroom? And so it would have been these doors that she was coming in, and there, she said, you remember there were about 5 concrete steps that led to these doors. She said, I would take my crutches and I would turn around and I would sit down on the step and I would push myself up. And then I would reach for my crutches and get them and go back in. It sounds like I'm really old for having to do that, but that was the way it was. There were no handicap accessible doors or steps. It was eventually changed to the Hanley Middle School, the name. And in 1984, the school marked history by another defining moment. And this was with the position of principal went to Joe Ammons. Mr. Ammons, who's a very good friend of mine, became the very first African-American principal in the Roanoke City school system. And I believe that he had served as assistant principal prior to that. Chris Martin was the longtime and dedicated secretary at the middle school, and then later she also worked in our central office. In 1975, Charlie Whitlow became a defining moment in our history because he became the first African American to take the oath of office on the Roanoke City Schools Board of Education. That same year, a contract was also renewed with Earl Manning to broadcast the Hanley home football games over the radio station WELR. The next slide shows the catwalk as it's about to be removed, and West Point Street is about to be interrupted. And I hear that there was a little concern about West Point Street being stopped up and detoured, and people going to have to go way out of their way to get to their houses. Mr. Markham shared a story with me just a week or so ago that they were having this discussion, and it wasn't going real well, and it was a tense moment. And one of the nicest, sweetest, quietest, gentlest ladies that I know in this whole town is Freddie Hill. She stood up, and with her gentle way, she said, "I live right over there, and so it's going to be an inconvenience for me because I'm going to have to drive all the way around, come on college and turn. But if it's good for these children, then it's okay by me." And Mr. Markle says that at that moment, the feeling and the sound completely changed in that room. In 2003, extensive remodeling of the entire grounds began and a much-needed facelift to the city auditorium. It was that Roanoke Schools Association that took on the auditorium project, and wow, our hats are off to them because it is beautiful, just beautiful. Today, an elevator and the band building sits where the street used to pass and under the place of the old catwalk. In 1995, the Hanley Middle School was built and moved located on its new location. Today, the school is entrusted to Ms. Linda Krim as principal and her worthy staff of Assistant Principal Lynn Robinson. They are supported by Angie Johnson, Rosemary McDaniel, and Secretary Sherry Yarber, who has 23 years in our system. Also walk down the hallways and the wings of Hanley Middle School. And when you do at this time of the year, you'll find that there are teachers like Kathy Pate and Deborah Royston decorating their rooms in anticipation of an excellent year of learning. The hallways are bright and exciting and ready, and that building too is immaculate. The support staff includes Katrina Thomas, who I enjoyed talking with. And she understands the workings of the entire building. You can ask her anything and she can answer about that building. She is one of the custodians, but she's also worked with the lunchroom staff at Hanley Middle School. She described for me the ways that the food items have changed with an initiative to curb the children's appetite for sugar and unhealthy foods. Ms. Shears at Night-in-Law School agreed, and she said that they have begun to cook more foods from scratch, like now they boil cabbage, and they're making homemade chicken pot pie. Katrina explained that the frozen treats do not include sugar. And then Ronnie Cosper is there, and I saw him for 2 days. He was working and painting and cleaning, and the building really looks brand new. I met Leila Evans at the Board of Education a couple of weeks ago when I was doing research. I heard her out there talking to Ginger, and I thought, that sounds like somebody I want to meet and get her story. I'm so glad I asked her to come. Leila Evans is retired now, but she worked at the Hanley High School lunchroom for 29 years and 6 months. For 24 of those same years, she wore 2 uniforms a day. The other was at the Florence Hand Home in LaGrange. She loved her job at the school lunchroom. She began in 1982 with lunchroom manager Jane Holloway. Built in 1962, this iconic building is special to generations and generations of students. The building was transformed and dedicated in 2006. But the wise decision makers made every effort to maintain much of the physical facade while transforming the building and the grounds into a cutting-edge, up-to-date technological learning center. During the renovation, students used the back entrance for safety back there on Wolfett Street. The entire grounds were renovated, dirt removed, and an aesthetic landscape began to take place. Here you see more pictures of the construction. You see when concrete was poured for the new office space at Hanley High School. And the space was made for the Hanley Gymnasium where the old Hanley Elementary School once stood. Renovations began in 2003, and the building and the grounds then was dedicated in 2006. In 2004, Roanoke City Schools hired Greg Foster initially as the assistant principal at Hanley Middle School, then principal at Hanley Middle School, and today he's my boss, and he is the principal of Hanley High School. His support team includes assistant principal Amy Fettner and secretaries Teresa and Suzanne. What would the system do without a maintenance supervisor? And we have the very best. I've known him my whole life, Jamie Taylor, and he does an excellent job. Across the street once sat the Hanley Gym. It was built between the years of 1940 and 41. And now this is where the gym was located. And here's a slide of the dismantling of the old building. Inside the high school, it's evident that care was given in maintaining a sense of history and heritage by displaying the old with the new. I appreciate that. Items from our Roanoke County Museum are carefully placed in the cases for students to enjoy and to learn from. Throughout the campus, colorful posters encourage harmony, learning, and character, and excellence. Ginger, Kathy, Tracy, Pam work very hard at the central office, but they are a delight to be around. I never hear negativity there or any kind of groaning or moaning. They are a delight to be around. Donna and Tamara as well are serious about their jobs, and they too are always positive and happy. Dr. David Krause's investment at Roanoke City Schools is unparalleled with his service to federal programs and technology and professional services. I wish that I could speak everybody's name, put everybody's picture up there, but that's impossible. But I do want to mention that there's two other very important people, Coach Mike Battles and Band Director Stephanie Daniel, because they go out and make us all look really, really good in front of a lot of people. In 2004, after a series of interim superintendents, I believe Dr. May was not an interim, but was here for a short while. Then Chuck Markham was elected by the school board to serve as superintendent of Roanoke City Schools. My understanding in my reading says that there was 15 applicants. But on that night, Monty Sue Knight made a motion quickly that they hired Chuck Markham to be the superintendent. And the vote was unanimous, and it was quick. I just personally want to say that I've gotten to know Mr. Markham over the past year. And he is a man of character. He is a man of integrity. And many of you have voiced to me your opinion of him. And it's all high, and it's all positive. And you have wonderful words about him. But I found some other people that I could quote, some things that they have said about Mr. Markham. Kathy McKinney, who is still here, 44 years, I believe. She came the same year that Thomas Turner came. She's still here. Kathy McKinney said this about Mr. Markham: I never thought I would work for a superintendent that was anywhere close to the caliber of Thomas Turner. But Chuck Markham has proved me wrong. He is definitely right up there with Thomas Turner, and that is the best compliment I could pay to a person. Mr. Markham genuinely cares about the school system and strives to make sure that every student receives the best education possible. Chris Martin said this: "Many of the positive improvements that have come about under the leadership of our current superintendent, Chuck Markham. Not since Mr. Thomas Turner have we had a leader in place who has a real love for our schools and cares deeply that our children are prepared."